Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Elyria City Council meeting for Monday, March 5th, 2023. I would ask you to please turn your phones off or on silent. We're going to have a moment of reflective silence right now, please. Thank you. Mr. Tollett, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Absolutely. Mr. Callahan. Here. Mr. Sierra. Here. Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Corbin.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mr. Lippian. Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart. 9 present. We have 2 absent, so we do have some excuses for Mr. Stewart and Mr. Lippian.
Can I get a motion to excuse absences for Mr. Stewart and Mr. Lippian, please?
So moved.
Second.
It was moved and properly second. Is there any discussion?
Question.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Clerk, are there any public hearings?
There are none.
Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Is there any discussion?
Question?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Well, you don't look like Mayor Whitfield. Ms. Calvert.
Good evening, Madam President. I wanted to update City Council on the progress that is being worked on over at Forge 417, also known as our esports arena. So interior demolition has started. It's underway, so you should be seeing some activity over there, which is getting us ready for the fuller project. So the next steps are at the next Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission will be hearing about a lot consolidation because the property is 5 or 6 different parcels that need to be combined in order to go on to the next phase, which will be the building plan approvals. So that will be coming very soon in the spring. And then also the project is anticipated to have financial closing end of June or early July. And at that point in time, we'll really see the construction pick up on that project. So we will have our esports arena relatively quickly here in 2023. We'll see lots of progress, and you should have time to put together your city council esports team. You can start thinking about that.
Thank you, Ms. Calvert. Are there any questions? Mr. Tollett?
At what time point will the TIF come, their TIF come?
So we'll begin to see some legislation on that being brought forth to you relatively soon. So that's a little bit more of a lengthy process because this would be a .41 TIF, which if you remember, we have to get into the chain of title. We have school board notification. I believe this is going to be a TIF where it will require not just their notification, but their approval. So we're finalizing all of those details. And that will be coming forward well in advance of that June financial closing date. Yes, I expect we'll begin to start looking at the legislation at that point in time.
Mrs. Davis, I saw your hand up.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to the director. In our last meeting with 417, we expressed that we would love to see a sign up. People don't believe us. So if that is still come forth, we would appreciate the sign to let them know that we are on the way and that we are in process of getting our 417.
Thank you, through you, Madam President. To Mrs. Davis, I did anticipate that because you are not the only one to request that sign. And they said at the time of financial closing is when they feel comfortable that they'll have all of their partners assembled to be able to advertise not only the esports arena, but all those partners that are pulled together that are going to make this project happen.
Thank you, Mrs. Calvert. Are there any other questions for Ms. Calvert? Thank you. Finance Director, Mr. Pileski.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to report to council that our independent auditors have started the audit for fiscal year 2022. So they'll be with us in one form or another for probably the next 6 months. Some work will be done in-house and some work will be transferring electronic files to them. So the audit has begun.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Pileski? Oh, Mr. Lundy, I'm sorry, please.
Okay. If there's no questions for the finance director, just wanted to be recognized if I could to give you an update.
Can we go in the order that I have on my sheet?
Oh,
Because you'll
okay.
mess me up.
I thought normally I follow the mayor, but that's okay. Maybe I'm out of line.
Okay. Law Director Deary, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of council. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Law Director Deary? Thank you. Safety Service Director, Mr. Lundy.
Thank you very much. I didn't sleep last night. I was waiting to give this report. I always try to emphasize to people that, you know, when you're in government, we're a 7/24, 365 operation. And I certainly think there was proof of that this weekend. Unfortunately, some things happened that caused really folks to step up and answer the bell. We had what I would consider to be a major power outage at the police department, which was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I believe, on Saturday. And we had several of our staff members who jumped in right away. I think all of you have seen Brett Schneider jumping from building to building all the time. I don't think the man ever sleeps. He's always busy helping out with things, but just wanted to make sure that Brett was recognized along with Josh Sowers with communications and Bill Madden with the building department. It's important for you to know that, you know, literally we had a major issue with our power box there, fuses going out. We're still trying to figure out what actually created it. However, the wheels were put in motion to try to find the parts. They were able to reach out to a supplier who had to leave his wife's craft show on a Saturday and go down to Medina, unlock a door, get the parts that we needed, meet us halfway with the parts, and then Josh and Brett and some guidance from Bill there were able to get everything installed so that we could contact First Energy. Nick was great with his response. You've seen him come into the meetings so we could get power restored to the building, and that ended up happening somewhere around noon. But that was a very serious issue with the power out there. Also, on Saturday, because of the high winds Friday night, and we all experienced that, we had fencing around some locations, especially at the corner of Washington and Broad, that literally blew over. And I think anybody who knows that fencing knows that it's pretty heavy. Preston and Keenan had sent a crew out there, see if we could get it back up. We needed to use some serious heavy equipment to lift that up. Dave Rothgary was great about coming in from water distribution, making sure that we could get that fence back in place. And then we had a report of a major pothole down near Wendy's, there on Cleveland Street, and some other holes that were starting to pop as well too. So 8:30 that night, we sent out some members of the street department so we could get that resolved. And the thing that I really want to stress is that I can tell you that each and every person that came in without hesitation and responded quickly. And as I've said before, it makes, you know, the city run much better. I know it makes my job easier when you call folks and you don't have to chase people down and people just say, what do you need? Okay, I'll come in and get it taken care of. And that's the kind of great response that we had over the weekend. And that's a tribute to the strong people that we have working for the city and working for the taxpayers. Also, I guess I'd like to stress, as we all knew on Friday, some of us were maybe building an ark. There's plenty of rain coming down. Unfortunately, it continues to expose the serious issue we have with the roof at the police department. Plenty of leaks over there, as I'm sure the chief can vouch for, and that's why we're obviously very eager to get going with that. I think we put in the budget about $600,000 for that. Thank goodness when the power went out, a generator performed well. I believe that's still our original generator. We do have money in the budget for the replacement of that too. So just want to make you aware of those. The one thing I guess I would ask when you talk with your constituents in the community, if you could please ask individuals if they would bring in their trash containers. Getting more and more reports at City Hall with trash containers being left out. It seems like it's more a case at rental properties where the renters are not bringing the containers back to the building. So if you see those, we have been trying to tag those. I've even sent out a couple letters reminding people that they need to be returned to the property and not left out at the curb. But any assistance you can provide getting that message out to your constituents would be helpful. And yes, I've sent out some letters to owners of some rental properties to certainly encourage their tenants to return those. That is my update, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam President, Mr. Lundy. It's funny you should say about the garbage cans, because I just was having a conversations with a round table type of people. And I says, we already had a discussion, Ms. Deary, and trying to figure out how we can handle the situation. And it seems like we're just throwing our hands up. And I think in that meeting, we said, well, maybe we just need to start helping these people out now. We know maybe they're lazy, maybe their kids are lazy, whatever, but you know what? Maybe we just have to pitch in as good neighbors sometime and bring that stupid garbage can in. So I just wanted to mention that. Sometimes we can help out, we can do the same thing we can do and share our part. But the other thing that still bothers me is in the street department. And we had so far a very mild winter. And we haven't been using salt. We haven't been using our plows. We haven't been using all the machines to do this. And we're not getting no more potholes done. And I just went out and marked a good few that need to be taken care of. And I'm going to start marking them, circling them, so that they know when they come out that they have to take care of them, and maybe that would help them to know and where they can address these problems. But I don't know what they're doing. I'm not going to micromanage what they're doing there, but you know what? If they got that extra time, they need to be out there fixing the roads, at least so they don't get damaged even worse. So thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Oswald, I would stress that if you see a pothole, that if you get with Mr. Curtis, those guys are awesome about responding, but they've got to know. I know they drive around and they see them and they do it. But if you see one, there's nothing wrong with telling them, letting them know. So, are there any other questions for Mr. Lundy? Mrs. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair, in regards to the trash cans that's left on the street after trash pickup, which they should pick it up, remove their trash can by 5 o'clock the next day. But what I've noticed is the same ones, and they're homeowners. And so in my area, so once before when we could call, they would come out and tag the trash can. If you kept on doing it, then they would remove that trash can from your property. And I think we need to get back to it. It's the same thing. And I don't know, these people drive right by their trash cans and leave it out there for weeks on end. They literally go into the street to put their trash in the can and walk back to the house. So I think we should have that opportunity to call. I don't know how busy they are at the department, but we got to do something about when we call in and say these trash cans are staying there, and it's week after week. It is not just a day or two. These people are the same ones, and so we ought to be able to do something about it. Thank you.
Madam.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Lundy, did you want to respond?
Yeah, just, we've heard those same reports. I know I've had a couple discussions with Rodney I about that in sanitation, and, I've told him about making sure that we tag so that everybody gets fair notice. And then if he finds, we're calling them frequent flyers, then let us know, and we'll send out a letter. I've started sending out letters on these. So if you have specific ones that you clearly see, I want to give folks a chance to, get tagged first and at least get notice of some sort. But if they've been tagged and they're still leaving them out, then we'll send them the letter. We'll remind them, I believe that the fine can be as much as $100, if I remember correctly.
Thank you. Mr. Oswald, you had your hand up.
Through you, Madam President. Well, in this conversation, Ms. Jury could specify a little bit more what we were talking about, but she keeps telling me, Kenny, there's a legal process you got to go through. And by the time you do this and you do that, then they're gone, and then they know how to work the system. And you're right. That's what we were trying to brainstorm, how we can come up with some better ideas. But by the time you tag it, I'm not saying that sounds like a great idea to do something similar to that, but it just seems like they play the law. They know what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lundy? Assistant Safety Service Director, Mr. Williams. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Police Chief Pelko.
Good evening. So I too would like to commend Brett Schneider, Josh Sowers, and Billy Madden for coming in. Our power actually went off at 7:30 on Friday evening. They came in immediately, were put to task to try and figure out the problem. They were at the police station till 3 o'clock in the morning trying to figure it out. They didn't have the necessary parts. They were back at the police station at 7 o'clock, making a run to meet the parts person to pick up the parts. And then they were there to noon by the time they finally got the power on. So I just wanted to recognize Brett Schneider, Josh Sowers, and Billy Madden for helping us out with that. I wanted to mention we're going to be hiring 5 new officers on the 13th here at 3 o'clock in council chambers. Everybody's welcome to come and attend and welcome them into our family. And then also on March 15th, we're going to be having the James Kerstetter Memorial Wreath Laying Ceremony in memory of him at noon at the police station. And again, everybody's invited to come attend and remember Jimmy Kerstetter. So with that said, I'll answer any questions for anybody at this time.
Are there any questions for Chief Pelko? Thank you, Chief. Mr. Praneski's not here this evening. City Engineer, Mrs. McKillop.
Good evening. Through you, Madam President, I just have one item. Beginning next Monday, March 13th, we will have lane closures on East Bridge Street as part of our big sewer project that's going on. The message board that's out in that area will be changed, if it hasn't been already, just to state that starting next Monday, look for changes in the traffic pattern. We will still have traffic flowing in both directions. It'll just be pushed to the post office side of East Bridge Street. And we'll have equipment and the shoring system that we've been waiting for delivered, and we'll be excavating right there between BP and Smitty's, where we'll be building a very large chamber for this project.
Thank you. Mr. Oswald.
Of course, I thought I had laryngitis, but not.
Evidently.
Okay, so I might mention, if we could, you know where the Get-Go gas station is, if you're heading, east? A slow down sign or something. Everybody's ripping through right underneath the bridge, and that's going to be a dangerous spot right there. So just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Madam President. So the traffic pattern on East Bridge Street, that's not going to be one lane each way underneath the bridge, is it?
No, No, that should remain as,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. McKillop? Thank you, Ms. McKillop. Human Resource Director, Mrs. Yusefi.
Through you, Madam Chair. In the past, I wanted to first request an ordinance and make a referral from the floor today, if I could. In the past, the city and council has codified committees and programs. So, for example, the healthcare committee is one that had been codified in the past. So tonight I'm pleased to ask you to pass an ordinance formalizing the newly initiated Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. The DEI committee is made of 10 employees who have volunteered to serve. We had several meetings and would like to present council with a DEI committee ordinance for your approval. The committee is committed to ensuring the diversity, equity, and inclusion of all employees, regardless of their age, color, race, religion, disability, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, or veteran status, and want to make sure that that remains a priority here at the City of Elyria. Have any questions? I'm available.
So you're making this referral, you're requesting to make the referral from the floor?
Yes, thank you.
We will refer that to community development? To community development for Monday night. Are there any questions for Ms. Yusefi? Thank you. Superintendent of Wastewater, Mr. Corzine.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President. In addition to being busy with our permit requirements for this year and also the CD items that we're trying to keep on track with, make sure we hit all deadlines in that, working with engineering on that. Obviously this has been the weirdest winter I ever remember since I was born. All the rain events that we've had and everything has been keeping us busy. But the main thing I wanted to mention to council tonight is how, on behalf of myself and my staff, how much we appreciate having all of our capital put into the temporary budget this year. We've been able to get everything ordered that we need to, and ahead of price increases. We actually had a couple of things that came in a little bit lower than our budgetary quotes. And with the long lead times for getting this stuff, we're like 2 months ahead of the game. So again, I just wanted to thank you for that opportunity to be able to do this year, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that, because it's going to be a successful year for us at Wastewater. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corzine. Are there any questions for Mr. Corzine? Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Madam Chair. One of the you made it easy for us to do that. I wanted to tell you thank you. You had several pieces of equipment that were, and I don't know how you did it, that you had values on for trade-in a year in advance. And that was outstanding. You saved the taxpayers a tremendous amount of money with what you did, so thank you. I hope we did our part to help.
Thank you for that comment. And I need to recognize Joe Strozak from Central Maintenance, the fleet manager for the city, and also my mechanic, Jimmy Flood. They work tirelessly to try to make these things happen and make these trade-in values stick. So we were able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Corzine? Thank you, Mr. Corzine. Director of Community Development, Mrs. Scott.
Through you, I just wanted to mention that the housing beautification program that was approved this past fall, our department has been finalizing all the forms. The law department has been great in reviewing them. The goal is to get that program rolled out by the end of this month, as previously discussed. So I will keep everybody posted. And once we are ready to roll that out, we will make sure that it's put on the city's website and as many forms of media to get the word out as possible. So other than that, I'm available if you have any other questions or concerns.
Any questions for Mrs. Scott? Thank you, Ashley. I want to make sure that I didn't miss any department heads. President's referrals and remittances. Number 1, Community Development. Number 2, Planning Commission, Community Development. Number 3, Planning Commission, Community Development. Number 4, Finance. Number 5, Finance. Number 6, Finance. Number 7, Finance. Number 8, Finance. Number 9, Finance. Finance is going to be busy. Number 10, Strategic Planning. 11 through 12, received and placed on file in the clerk's office. Mr. Clerk, are there any petitions and remittances from the lobby?
Yes, we have several, and just a reminder to try to keep your remarks to 3 minutes. Tiffany Reedy, 113 William Street, Republic Steel, I think it's Quality. Quarry, oh, excuse me. I know I couldn't read it. Sorry, Tiffany. It's your handwriting.
I know, sorry.
Ms. Reedy, if you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
Tiffany Reedy, 113 William Street. Good evening. I just want to start by saying that what I'm going to address was caused by predecessors, not who is sitting before me. I don't want this to feel like it's an attack. I'm just stating something for the record to try and express public concern to the EPA. So the facts are, the access is not being restricted as required because children from all over the county, I'm hearing, are coming to swim in it. It's still an issue. The fencing is a big issue, and we're hoping to get that situated before summer. The chemicals that are in that quarry cause things like cancer, sterilization, death, health effects that are too vast to list. But I do know one thing, per the EPA records, that residential soil tests high in something called benzoapyrene. This is common in neighborhoods that have sites like this in their neighborhood. And when you have long exposure to this chemical in particular, it causes skin cancer, and when inhaled, lung cancer. This concerns me that perhaps those chemicals are not staying put like we all think they might be. For 46 years, it would seem that the EPA or whomever has been involved has been keeping the residents in the dark and preventing them from being an active part of the remediation and processes at this site. There was no public notice printed in the paper. There has been in the past, but I don't know who that falls on, if that's the EPA because it's federal, but for some reason that wasn't put in this time for this 5-year review. Ideally, I just don't want to see a death or some horrific tragedy and putting our first responders at risk because this is wide open to the public. I know there's grant money available, several different grants actually, and alternative measures that are more natural that can be used to kind of start working on getting some of those chemicals out. So today hopefully starts a new chapter in doing more to clean up this site and protect the residents that live around it. And we are now going to be an active part of this process, watching and holding accountable those tasked with this site until the goal has been reached. We're looking to partner with you, not work against you, but this needs to be done. On March 25th at 2 p.m., there will be a resident-only town hall so that folks can have the timeline put in front of them and the information they need, so that if we get the town hall with the city council and whomever else needs to be involved, department heads, et cetera, they can come in informed and ask the right questions and work with you guys. So thank you.
Ms. Reedy, where will the town hall be held?
The location will be announced. I'm not entirely sure yet where that's going to be held, so it'll be, I'll put that out there as soon as I have a location set.
Thank you. Mr. Tolet?
For Ms. Reedy, number one, thank you for sending the email. I knew it was back there in the 80s. I didn't know it was still there. And I'm gonna ask Mr. Corzan if that's still okay. Could you say just a few words, because you may be able to help all of us together, on this issue, because he has some background with this.
Right.
So,
Mr. Corzan?
if that's okay with you.
You know, and I just want to say, it's not like the quarry is new. I never knew it was back there. My brother said that was because I was a girl and I didn't go stomping through the woods like they did. But he is in his 70s and he said they swam back there when they were kids. So it's not like the quarry's new, but, you know, just to give it some context. Mr. Corzan?
Thank you, through you, Madam President. I don't have my files with me, but I know that back in 1977, the city purchased the quarry from, I believe it was Republic Steel at the time. The city wasn't aware of what was going on with the quarry when it was purchased, but the city purchased it as parkland, to make a park out of it. Subsequently, it was determined to have contamination. US EPA, there's a lot of information in my files about what US EPA did when they came in under the CERCLA to do a lot of testing. I've got all the test results, and what they did was, because that quarry is like 60 feet deep, the coldest waters are down at the bottom, and that's where the contamination was found. They found that from the surface down to 20 feet, it basically had no impact as far as the waters that flow from there to the Black River. And that's why US EPA made the decision that they did back in the day for what remedial actions were necessary. The contamination is pretty much from 30 feet down, in the quarry. Now, I know a number of, there was more soil removed than what US EPA actually required, because there was some soil from a ditch that ran to the quarry. All that soil that was contaminated was removed, and they found some additional soil that they removed as well. And I can't remember the quantities, but all that was removed that was contaminated. When all the remediation was done, I can't remember what year that was, they actually delisted that site from the National Priority List, or the NPL, back in 2002. And I have the Federal Register publication of that and all the facts as to why they delisted it. But US EPA at the time determined that since the waters that flow through there stay at the top as it flows through, and only the coldest waters at the bottom that don't come up, they stay down there. There's no laminar flow of water pulling that stuff out, and they found that what the quarry needed at that point, and I know that every 5 years, and again, they'll assess that again this year, I believe it's by the end of March or something like that. But every 5 years they come, they reassess it, and from my recollection, they have a public hearing. I know I've been at some of them. I've been here 27 years, and nobody comes to them. There's other properties in Elyria that they come here for, and not owned by the city, but when they have these public meetings, basically no one shows up. Ohio EPA is here, US EPA is here, we're here, and but they're willing to take comments. So I'm very happy to hear that this group of residents is interested, because that's a major step forward, to have other people interested in these kinds of things. But I'll answer any questions that anybody might want more detail on.
Mr. Oswald?
This one's not for you, but Ms. Reedy. You. When we had our meeting for our flooding issue in the Spring Valley area, I think Ms. McKellips, I don't know if you handled getting Northwood School, but that's where we had our meeting. And I don't know if, what is it, Hamilton School? Is that what they called on Middle Avenue?
I believe so, yeah, I
Maybe
believe
if
so.
you reach out to them, that could be a place where you could have your meeting
Right.
in that area. Maybe you'd get a good show from everybody in that area, because isn't that kind of near exactly? So it was just a thought.
No, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. This is for Mr. Corzine or Ms. McKillop, whoever can answer. There is fencing around that quarry, is that correct?
Yes, there is fencing around that quarry, and there is signage posted by US EPA and the city to keep out. And Engineer McKillips and I have had some conversations about, other things. I mean, if you want to, sky's the limit. Let's put some cameras in there, and if you had a system where you had some motion sensors and you had stadium lighting all the way around this thing, and when someone goes through the fencing, all this lighting comes on. I mean, those are just some of the things that go through my head. Obviously, cost is prohibitive for something like that.
Sure.
But, trying to stop someone from cutting the fence at the bottom and making like a rat hole and crawling through or something like that. These are conversations that we have had recently because, and again, this is something that US EPA is very interested in when they come in. They want to see, because there is a list of control items that the city has to do, and fencing is one of them, and among others, and the city's always been up on fulfilling all these actions that have been required. But, other than electrifying the fence or, doing something like that.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair. Mr. Corzine, is it safe to say, can we get together and go out there and take a look? The council people, can we go out and take a look at this area and have an eye view of what's going on?
In conjunction with the engineering department, I would leave that to Engineer McKillips.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Reedy or Mr. McKillop? It's not normally allowed, but if you come to the mic and ask the question quickly. I know, I'm not to go.
Kristen A. Johnson Howard. My question is, for you. You say that the contamination is 30 feet down. Okay, 30 to 60 feet. Now, we know that the number one sickness that the United States has is heart disease. Number two is cancer, with COVID being number 3. Number 10 is kidney disease. Now, we know that the wind and the water flows everywhere, right? We don't know how many people have lived close to this quarry that have come down with these 10 diseases. Is that possible? Is that a possibility? Since we know that water flows everywhere and air flows everywhere, and we have storms. So isn't this some kind of, is it really that far down, or does it come up? Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Corzine?
To you, Madam President. From all the information in the files that I have, EPA has documented that there is no water pulling up off the bottom, that 30 to 60 feet down. That's why, again, they set the action plan that they did back in the day, and that action plan has been forwarded through today. So nothing has really changed in that. Again, they were very cognizant of the fact of what all was contaminated there. They saw that all that was removed as far as the soils that were contaminated. And all the testing of the water, you know, there was nothing there that was of concern to them that they saw any issues with.
Thank you, Mr. Corzine. We're going to move on. Thank you. I would invite everyone who's interested to attend the meeting on March 25th at 2 o'clock. Mrs. Reedy will let us know when that will be. When the EPA is here, if you're interested, attend and get your questions answered. Mr. Clerk.
Jason Pilardi, 312 Harvard Avenue, no subject.
Mr. Velarde, if you give your name and address for the record, please.
I kind of wanted to follow up from the conversation we had about the drive-by shooting on Avenue. I wish Mr. I found out about it at the last minute. Last Wednesday. None of my neighbors knew about it either. Oops. Thank you. So that was false information being provided by a Blackwatch person to the community. And the point I wanted to make about that was when you share information that you haven't verified as facts, that it's foolhardy and it's actually dangerous to the neighborhood. Because what happens is it causes neighbors to let their guard down and they take their focus off being vigilant about things that are going on, thinking that everything is fine. In fact, in this person's email that was shared with me, she had stated that now that these people had moved out, that there was no longer an issue, that everything was fine in the neighborhood, not to let one house ruin the neighborhood. The problem is it isn't just one house. There's several houses throughout the Eastern Heights area that are, you talk to pretty much anybody who lives in the area, they can point out 2 or 3 houses that are problem houses. So the problem isn't gone, the threat isn't gone there. So I wish that before information like that is shared that they verify it. They could have asked me, I would have told them that no, they come and go every day like I do from my home, going to work or wherever. Stopping crime in Eastern Heights area. I don't know if this is true or not, but I know we hear it year after year that our police department has certain restrictions placed upon them as to what they can and cannot do. I would say we're past due time where we take the cuffs off the police so that the police can put the cuffs on the people who are causing the problems that we're having in our neighborhoods. Let them do what they need to do to get rid of these problems. Traffic issues, speeding. Our streets have become and continue to be makeshift drag strips, and stop signs seem to be optional right now throughout the neighborhood. There was just another accident at the corner of my street a few days ago. Car blew through the stop sign and hit a car traveling down Park Avenue. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. They got out, exchanged information, and continued on their way. But what if that was my 17-year-old daughter driving home from work at that time that it happened? You never know. I mean, they're blowing through stop signs like they don't exist because there's no repercussions for it. It's time that we step up the police presence in our neighborhood so that they can enforce as well. Once again, to the police chief and to council, I extend my hand to help in any way I can. Once again, you need to use my driveway, use my house, use me, whatever you need to do. I'm happy to take part in that, be an active solution, and instead of just complaining about it, I want to be active in it. And I'm sure many of my neighbors would agree. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Lundy?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond. Chief Pelko's daughter had a school event tonight. I told him it was okay to leave early so I could be at his daughter's event. Otherwise, he would have been here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Mr. Locke.
Reverend Nathan Russell, 136 Barrington Court, ARPA funding, essential services.
Nathan,
Good evening, Mr. Russell. Please give your name and address for the record, please.
Nathan Russell, 136 Barrington Court, Elyria, Ohio. Leaders of the city of Elyria, it is good to be with you again for this meeting of the City Council. Since the Saints of Washington Avenue Christian Church and I last addressed this austere and auspicious body, members attended a Finance Committee meeting on Monday of last week. And this past Friday, Ron Dolphin, our chair of the board, and Mark Mathis, an elder, and I met with the Honorable Mayor Frank Whitfield. You have honored us by listening to our ideas, our hopes, and we are grateful. You, the members of the Elyria City Council, are deliberating a budget for the city, and you will decide how to appropriate funds that the federal government allotted Elyria through the American Rescue Plan. What an opportunity and responsibility you have to administer these funds in a just and equitable manner. My congregation and I admire you for the work that you have been elected to do. As with some appropriation measures, especially those that come down from the United States Congress, the definitions are fuzzy, or there are at least 50 shades of gray, shall we say, in determining the criteria for how to distribute these funds. We know that you can use these funds to plant sewer lines, hire law enforcement, purchase a trash collecting vehicle, guarantee income for citizens who are impoverished, and award dollars to not-for-profit and religious organizations. Each of these opportunities has merit, and we promise our prayers and support as you discern how to use these funds in a wise way. And yet there is a unifying thread that connects these seemingly disparate elements, and it is this: all of them promote a public good. Yes, Washington Avenue Christian Church is a religious organization. Yes, we received payroll protection back in 2020. We are a church that takes seriously God's requirement to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. These characteristics, though, are not unique to religion, for justice, mercy, and humility promote the public good and human flourishing. Here are some examples of Washington Avenue Christian Church as a public good. In the late 1940s, when the First Christian Church of Elyria needed to relocate, we purchased the former home of United States Representative and Ambassador to France, William Graves Sharp. At the time of the church's purchase of the mansion, the home was in desperate need of repair, but by God, we did it. We restored it, and the historic home now even has air conditioning.
Your 3 minutes are up. Can I get a motion to suspend 3 minutes? It's been moved and second. Are there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Please go ahead.
In 2020, Washington Avenue Christian Church partnered with the Lorain County Historical Society to install a historical marker on our front lawn. Now, religiously speaking, we did not have to do that, but we know we are citizens of this community and desire to be a public good. In the next few months, we'll install a free library on our property, which we hope will be put to good use by our neighbors. And I forgot to mention that we have several community garden plots in our front lawn as well. These are just some examples of WACC as a public good, but as you know, there's a preacher in the house and there's more to the story. On election night in November 2019, a first-time mayor was elected. His election was groundbreaking in every way. The first black mayor elected in Elyria, the youngest mayor elected in Elyria, and an independent. The day of his election, he called me to ask if our church could be a place for him and his family to pray prior to the results being called. I welcomed the mayor and his family and told him that not only was he praying in a church house, but a historical and politically significant house too.
Mr. Russell, I'm going to ask you to wrap your sermon up, sir.
We are a public good because we, like the Washington National Cathedral, are a house of prayer for all people. In conclusion, thank you. You may know the story of Esther, Queen of Persia, and her man, the king. The deal was this: there was a murderous scheme to annihilate the Jews. And Mordecai, the uncle of Esther, encouraged Esther to go before the king. Now, I don't think you have much in common with the king of Persia. I don't know that any of you have a royal scepter to extend. And I can only say that I am no queen, at least not in that sense. But what I do believe, friends, is that we are here together for such a time as this. You, dear leaders, have an opportunity to use a recklessly inclusive definition of essential services and public good, a definition that is entirely possible and permissible under the United States Department of Treasury. ARPA funds can be used for social service and religious organizations, whereas tax revenue is governed by different guidelines. You have a responsibility to the people of Elyria to steward ARPA resources and tax revenue that's entrusted to you to do the most good for the public. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Matt Van Wormer, 235 Denison Avenue, Chestnut Commons Development.
Mr. Van Wormer, please give your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Matthew Van Wormer, 235 Denison Avenue, Elyria. To City Council and the Administration, Ms. Sawerka and I appreciate this opportunity to address the issue regarding the expansion of retail services at Chestnut Commons. As two lifelong Illyrians with families that have seen Elyria change over the years, we see these developments with excitement, but also some trepidation. The tract of land for this development falls within the 3rd Ward as well as Eaton Township, and the traffic corridor passes through the 1st Ward. This is why Mary and I wanted to express our thoughts and concerns as you consider giving the green light to this expansion. Let us be very clear. We agree that expansion can be good for the city, but not if that expansion adds to the congestion that we're already dealing with around Chestnut Commons. Phase 1, bringing a gas station and grocery store, will, by the very nature of those enterprises, increase the amount of traffic on Route 57 as well as Chestnut Ridge. Additionally, we will see more traffic on Reeser Point Crossing. That area, also ripe for expansion, and already has infrastructure in place which could bring several more businesses to the 1st Ward. Now it appears that Council is willing to give the developers the go-ahead with a solid plan for traffic control in place, without a solid plan for traffic control in place. It also appears that ODOT's involvement in this process won't begin until we're further down the road. No pun intended. That was Mary's. The reality of the timeline presented to the committee on Monday, February 27th, shows us that the ABC development doesn't offer a traffic easing solution until 2026 or later. So if Council moves forward and the mayor gives his approval as well, we urge those parties to continue to challenge ABC development for solutions and require ODOT to be at the table for future roadway design and development. We need them to be more than just silent partners in this process. On behalf of myself and Mary Sawerka, who couldn't be here this evening, we urge all parties to seek solutions, large and small, that will benefit the residents and bring progress to our community. Speaking of the community, it is vital that we, the people, be informed and engaged, as we will be part of the solution. After all, in the end, the consumers will determine the success or failure of these endeavors. We want them to be successful, without a doubt, and creating an efficient traffic situation is vital to that success. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's all the remonstrances from lobby.
Petitions and remonstrances from
We have one,
council
Mr. Callahan, the matter of a real industry and hazardous materials.
Through you, Madam President, I'd like to just make a request for a referral on the floor, and for you to put to the proper committee a request asking the railroad companies to notify first responders as to when chemicals and hazardous materials will be transported through Elyria and surrounding communities.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Callahan. We're going to refer this to Utility Safety and Environment, and it'll be on the agenda for Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 6:00 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the remonstrances from council members.
Resolutions first reading.
Actually, reports of standing special committees, and there's none.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. Resolution adopting the 2022 report of the Elyria Tax Incentive Review Council and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Callahan.
Madam President, I move that this resolution be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
It was moved by Mr. Callahan, second by Mr. Snyder. Is there any other discussion?
Question on the motion.
On the suspension, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the emergency, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the passage, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-6. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution finding that the city has unfit for municipal use certain city property.
Mr. Tolet.
Madam Chair, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
It was moved by Mr. Tolet, second by Mrs. Davis. Is there further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor of the suspension say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the passage, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-7. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolution second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director of the City of Elyria to dispose of city property that is unfit for municipal use.
Mr. Tolet.
Madam Chair, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tolet, second by Mrs. Davis. Is there further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor of the suspension say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the passage, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-32. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Cintas Corporation to provide and maintain city uniforms, floor mats, and other laundered items through the state purchasing program or equivalent program.
Mr. Tolet.
Madam Chair, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Tolet, second by Mr. Snyder. Is there further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor of the suspension say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the passage, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-33. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an economic development agreement with Eaton Point LLC or its designee.
I declare this ordinance has had its first reading.
That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinances second reading.
There are none.
Ordinances third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development, request the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 3/13, beginning at 6 p.m. All referred items. Joint CD Finance, request the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 3/13, immediately following the Community Development meeting. Finance, request the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 3/13, immediately following the joint meeting. Utility Safety Environment, request the Law Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Wednesday, 3/8, beginning at 6 p.m. All items referred. And Strategic Plan, request the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, and Law Director on Monday, 3/20, beginning at 7 p.m. All items referred.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Madam President. Tomorrow at 6:30 here in council chambers, we're going to have an educational discussion on how we can come up with some different solutions to our deer population. This is not a calling meeting, okay? And we've already had discussion on previous meetings on issues that people are having. What this meeting is to come to an agreement maybe, or get some better ideas how we can both live together with our friends, our deer, us, all our animals, So if you'd like to show up tomorrow and listen, the guy that's going to be speaking is Jeff Westerfield. And every time I see an issue or something in a paper that's talking about deer, I look on the bottom of the page, and his name's down there. He's writing all these papers, so he's really, really good, smart. I'm learning more than I wanted to know, but it is pretty good. So thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. I encourage you all to attend if you're interested in learning more about the deer population and how we move forward with that. Is there anything else from council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming.